Chapter 6, Living in the Moment. One aspect of living in the moment I found to be the hardest for me to remember and hold on to is the fact that the past, present, and future all exist in a singular moment. When we say living in the moment, I view it as a point in time where the past, present, and future all intersect. This makes this a magical point in time in my perspective. Imagine all three timelines if you view the past, present, and future as such, intersecting at one point. What a convergence that would be! That would mean your past self is occupying the same space as your future self. Your present self is able to witness and merge with your other two selves. That is the true wisdom and power of a moment in time or living in the moment. Living your life knowing the past is happening as we speak, the future is now, has some mind blowing truth to it that will impact greatly how you would impact how your world and environment proceeds. Sorry, it's a little dark. I thought I had enough afternoon light. Imagine what life would be like if we could see our past self and future self in every moment existing in yourself at one time. Wow. Living in the moment seems to be a hard thing to master. If you look at the Star Trek universe, they mention this in the movie Star Trek Insurrection. And I will stop there because that is a quote from the movie, and I will let you read it and see what you think. You got on mute, Gina.
I'm sorry about that. Sirius was typing in, my dreams turn off and on. At least the memory recall last night felt like it turned on, or recall dial turned up. And that's interesting too. Like if we're remembering our dreams, or dreams half remembered, half misunderstood. Okay, it's my turn to read. I've got it here in theory. Okay, this is from Michael's book, everybody. We live in a world that is governed by our thoughts and perceptions. Yet, these two concepts are not always in alignment, in my opinion. I will start by clarifying how I see each of these concepts. Thought is the energy given to a concept or idea in your mind that you have given voice to. This voice is either in your head or only heard by you or is spoken by you for others to hear. This energy starts as a concept or belief within that is being shared. Perception, on the other hand, is something different. Perception is something that is either in your head or spoken out loud through the filters of your mind, and therefore a judgment created by your experiences. Perceptions are created by expressing wisdom gained through life experiences. They are judgments because not everyone is the same. So, not every outcome is the same. Let me give you some examples. And I don't have any examples. This is where the quote ends.
Oh, I don't want to give away everything.
Oh, wow. Wow. Like it just made me think more and more, right? And um I think those are good points. Like I want to put it back up here now. Um, I guess it's like your perspective and the way you're living things and the discernment that comes with it and honoring your own experiences, because we're saturated with subconscious programming that we just, if we hear or see something, we put it in a category and we don't fall back on our own perspectives. And when we reflect on our own work and when we even say things out loud, we hear the sound of our voice and it adds that coherence. And so now my brain is playing around with that quote that I just read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
And
really great.
a way that I was looking at it is if I was to say a computer is a device that allows me to store information and to view information. That is a thought. That's what, I think of a computer. But now this is the perception is a laptop is a place where you can store information as long as the hard drive is working cuz and you better back it up and have it stored in multiple places, and it does allow me to view information as long as the Wi-Fi is hooked up and everything. That becomes more perspective because I'm talking about it in a way of these are the things that work and don't work in my experiences. So therefore it's not a thought, it's my perception is of the device. And so that's where I was going with the definition and trying to clarify is there's filters put into it.
Yes, and I think filters even like our own thoughts, feelings, opinions, and the epigenetics around us, and the vibrations that our body and mind are getting, and then we interpret it, internalize it. And the word concept, it's not a word I use often. And I notice when people talk about my work, they refer to it as a concept. And I'm like, okay, because I guess the perspective is mine. And to people who don't have that perspective, it remains a concept, a thought to them. So, did you have a thought or did the thought have you? That's what I always ask because, on The Adventures of Mark Twain, I don't remember who wrote the movie, but there's a part where they're having a conversation with Satan, and the way their little interaction ends is he basically tells them, like, you're nothing but a thought. And when I was a kid, I remember, like, it was like Satan was like an authority, and I thought, okay, like I should listen to what he has to say. And it was like he was telling the truth, and that's what made him the devil, if you will, because it went against um, what was the perspective that you had to have, and this idea that you were nothing but a thought, that nothing around you was real. And it made me think back to your comments earlier when you were talking about being here and being there and everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Because if you were nothing but a thought, how else could you do that? So we're these thoughts, and now I'm thinking about Thoth, the Egyptian goddess. So I thoroughly enjoyed today's story, species, story, medicine. I definitely soaked up the medicine because one thought leads to another reaction, another thought, right? Thoughts lead to thoughts, and thoughts can become dangerous, especially to people who are power and control hungry. They don't like you thinking and being independent. So when you're taking perspective, and when you're transforming concepts and giving it meaning, and you're doing your own critical thinking based on your own conclusions while considering the perspective of others, that is very empowering. That is big time taking charge of your life. And to me, that's very powerful. And just wow. Any thoughts about thoughts?
Thoughts are, you know, information that just, in my opinion, that just comes and goes. And so I can, have the thought of, wow, it's windy outside. Okay. So it's windy. But if I go and if I want to change it to a perspective and go, then I would say, wow, it's windy outside. I better go check on maybe the plants or go check on, these things outside to make sure they're got enough anchoring, or they're going to blow away, or do I need to water more because the wind is drying them out faster? You're putting more experience into the thought itself, and you're expanding the thought. So perspectives are thoughts as well. It's just you're looking at it differently. And you know an example of a thought that is I mentioned in the book, where I challenge it and I put it under the chapter of things that we just believe because we're told, is, and I've used it a lot on shows, is we look outside and we say the grass is green. That's a thought. We're describing what we see the grass as. But perspective to me is going, well, I'm saying the grass is green because someone told me that's what green looks like, and that's what grass looks like. And so, therefore, my perspective is yes, the grass is green. But what if we got that wrong? What if green is really brown or black, and somebody said, well, scientifically, green is being, the frequency of green is refracting back, and that's why we see green. And to not get into a heated argument, I just said, okay. And when I was off air, when they mentioned it, I was on air. And so off air, I said to myself, but how do we know what the frequency of green is? For all we know, the world around us is like, the Matrix. When Neo breaks the Matrix and sees everything for what it is, everything is code lines. And I go, what if this is the real reality? Everything is frequency coding. And I made the observation at the end of this section talking about it, and I said, you know, here's an interesting point. I will accept the grass is green because it looks better and is more aesthetically pleasing than these codes. And I'm okay with that. I understand it may not actually be green, but I'm okay with that. And so it was my way of saying to people, some of the things that we blindly accept as truths, we don't have to change. We can still accept them and be okay. We just have to be aware that we're doing that. That's what I was trying to drive home into that point.
Reminds me of where I'm at in my journey right now, is moving beyond categories, and yet I require categories so people know what I'm talking about. Like angel, ET. I don't know the difference anymore, but I use angel and I use ET because people typically know what I'm talking about, right? James asked a question a while back. What about aspects of the multiverse aspect of multiple selves? What about aspects of the multiverse aspect of multiple selves?
So this is an SSP aspect, and what it is we have alters that are our consciousness that's been splintered off and is being used, and so they are running timelines of their own, and we don't know about them, or if we do know about them, we are at choice to merge ourselves back into one, in which case we then have to figure out, I think, in that moment, which timeline is the right timeline. And the reason I say it that way is because we are in the belief that we are prime zero, the original me. Well, I can be a fractal of a me on another planet who's the real me. who's awakening to this reality and awakening to the fact that there are multiple me's all over. And so I don't know who the real, true, honest, original copy of Micheal is. I can only operate under I'm the Micheal I am right now, and this Micheal that's over here doing this, I am at choice to say, hey, I'm ready to bring you into the fold. Let's operate together. Let's merge ourselves back into one, in which case, when you're needed over there, I can choose to have you operate in that timeline. So both timelines are going simultaneously. Or I can say, you served well over there, but that service is no longer needed. It doesn't serve here and it doesn't serve the greater good here. So we're going to end this timeline and we're going to bring you in. And I know it sounds like, in a way, that we're creating mass murder by ending timelines. But what people have to understand are these are not naturally formed timelines. So when the program splinter, say, for example, I get splintered in a program, and a Palladian may say, hey, we need Micheal, his consciousness, to do this timeline, this mission here. So a timeline is created for me to do that mission. And then when it's over, that timeline will disappear and be re-assimilated into the whole consciousness. Now, that's how we get around, if we had to hurt someone, we're not actually going, like, I'm not going to their house and committing this crime here. It's on another timeline in another dimension. And so that's how we, the individual, like, I'm not responsible for what my alter did. It was under influence, it was under somebody else's control that they bred me, created me to do a specific task, and I did that task. I did not go and say, hey, I'm going to create an alter that's going to go and become this super awesome assassin, and I'm going to rack up a whole bunch of kills, and, put myself on the black market. That's not what we're talking about. That's not an alter. That's just you being here and you doing what I guess you feel you are drawn to do, in which case, happy to you, but lose my number, lose my info. Don't come looking for me. I don't want to meet you. But yeah, and so that's what I think. I'm hoping that's what James is referencing, is there is a multiverse out there because timelines have been manufactured and created to fulfill specific purposes for specific people. And then those timelines disappear, and we're just left with memories of stuff that may or may not happen. And I'm now starting to wonder if this is where Mandela effects are coming from, or people with programs that are starting to remember things and going, wait a minute, this isn't the right timeline. This isn't the right this. And it's timelines merging, and somehow some people remember the old timeline versus the new. And so I'm hoping that's what he was asking. If not, I just gave everybody a lesson in the secret space program for fun.
I find it very fascinating. And as you were talking, I thought about many things. And one thing I thought about was, well, what about our timeline? Like, who's to say, you know, we're an illusion, right? Like this whole entire universe, my timeline, you, us meeting today, having this conversation might just fade away because check off list. Somebody else out there was able to be successful in whatever. Like it's really fascinating. Alien ATUK wishing you a happy birthday. And James has other comments here too. I'll just rewind here and read them. So at one point, James was thinking, what about like a microphone when a couple things come together and cause feedback? And that made me think about cotton candy. Like the cotton candy floaties are there, but at some point you need to take the stick and let the wind swirl, and the cotton candy collects and sticks to each other. Um, so that's what I thought about. How about you, Michael?
So I think in that aspect, what is going on is you have the energy of the moment, and somebody else is in their moment. And when the two meet, if you're on the same frequency, you can either blend and create harmony, or you can create feedback, and it sounds horrible. And for the sensitive ears, it's like, oh my, it's the worst sound in the world. But I would say, that is an aspect of, if we look at it as, two alters, two timelines, and both feel their timeline prime, and both want to exist, but not merge or not connect, then you're going to have this conflict all the time of going, back and forth and trying to figure out who is who, what is what. And they're going to keep crossing paths. And those moments where they pass, those are the moments where I feel like the Mandelas come in. Is, let's say, for example, the namesake. So I have a timeline where Mandela's alive to the 90s, a timeline where Mandela died in the 80s. They hit a point and they merge, and the timeline from the 80s is running the show for a while. So Mandela died in the 80s. Then there's an announcement in the 90s, Mandela died. And I'm like, wait, he's already dead. How can he die twice? And that's where the timeline from the 90s re-merges with the 80s, and now takes and runs the show and says, yeah, you think he died in the 80s, but we're going to accept that he died in the 90s. And so now it goes on. And so how it works is, now let's say, I'm going to the store and I'm like, wait, where's the cornucopia on this label? Boom, the other timeline sweeping in and saying, you're right, there's supposed to be this. And so that's how the timelines are going to constantly be going back and forth, and you're going to be jumping timelines. And that's where the confusion is going to come in, because you're going to constantly be going, what's real and what's not real, because they have paperwork that says there was never a cornucopia, but yet I have physical evidence here there is a cornucopia. So who's telling the truth? Well, both are, because they're both different timelines. And so that's where our mind is not designed to actually comprehend multiple timelines, multiple scenarios in one solid moment. And so that's why we keep jumping, is it's the mind's way of protecting itself. And that's why you could go to a movie and be like, man, I really love the butter popcorn here. And you're like, and you take one bite and you're like, this is the worst popcorn ever. Because you jump to a timeline that doesn't like that movie's buttered popcorn, and you think, what's going on? Why do I not like this all of a sudden? And there's all these little nuances that tell us we've jumped timelines. but we don't pay attention to them. We just write them off as going, well, maybe the cook, burnt the butter this time and that's why I don't like it. And so we'll create stories to take us out of it. And there is, the problem with the timelines is there are factions in the programs. Just I'll share this real quick that are literally going back in time and changing events, like physically changing what happened and rewriting history. And that's why everybody's energy is so off the scale, is because major changes are being taken, but there are units in the programs that are actually there to fix these and make them, correct them, and not allow the change to be made and try to remedy it. And yeah, and what's interesting is, we live in a world where because of free will, everything has to be disclosed. And if you look at Star Trek, well, if Star Trek Enterprise, that series, the main focus of it was the temporal wars between factions. Well, that was their way of saying, yes, we are in a temporal war. We are physically actually doing this, or other things. And so, if you know what you're looking at and you know how to understand what you're seeing, there's a lot of answers out there, but it's presented in a way to where if I was to say to, like, Gina, for example, who doesn't watch Star Trek, I'm assuming, would sit there and go, well, that's a TV show. And that's just entertainment. That's what TV is. Well, you're going to miss the truth of what's there. And there is, the fact too of a lot of people look at the original Star Trek series, all those different aliens. We didn't have makeup artists back then to the scale we do today. So when you look at a lot of the aliens, we just look at them and go, wow, that was a great makeup job. They didn't have that tech really back then to make them look like they do today. And a friend of mine who's been a guest pointed out that to me and said, "You think those aliens really wore masks when they didn't have the ability to make masks?" I mean, you had Mission Impossible where they would peel a face off, but it was still human. They didn't have all those like ridges and all those antenna or different, ears or different things. And so she pointed out and said, if you really want to know what some of these races look like, look at the background characters of Star Trek, the original series, because they didn't have the capability to make these elaborate face masks. And it's like, you think about it and you go, oh my God, that's true. Whoa, that's really what they look like. Wow. And it really transforms how disclosure has been around us all along, but we never looked at it.
There's so many points that you made. I don't even know where to start. Like costumes, you're right. You nailed it. Even like old school Easter Bunny costumes, they're kind of on the scary side. Now today, they're very, fun looking. Um, Anything original, I think, looks creepy because that was the authentic. And even cartoons. Cartoons were invented for adults. And like old school cartoons are on the freaky looking side because it's based on the direct images that came from the artist, and they're freaky. And where did those images come from, right? Now we can get into a conversation about synchronicity um, throughout the world where people have the same drawings and whatnot. um, I thought about deja vu when you were talking, like maybe there's deja vu going on when timelines are getting crossed. um, I also thought
Absolutely.
ground zero at one point because it seems like this ground zero energy is very top secret, but it seems like I don't have a science background, but it seems like if things are at ground zero, then it's like things are calm and neutral and ready to manifest. And it's like being in a cartoon where you want a broom, you have a broom. Don't need it anymore, it's gone. And when you have ground zero energy, then you don't have a need for gas or cars because you just jump to this timeline. You just space travel, time travel, you know. And I don't watch scary movies because, full disclosure, I can't handle them. Can't handle scary movies. But I do feel there is a full disclosure going on in some way, shape, or form, and I don't believe that there's only one all. I think like everything that everybody's talking about to some degree has some kind of truth in it. That all of the stories to some degree are true. You know.
Right.
Um, uh,
And an interesting way to look at it too is we can say, well, some things I can understand are, how they pulled the wool over our eyes, but not everything. And I like to point out at times and go, looking at the screen, we have virtual backgrounds. And how you know that is because, like, I can hold this up here and you can see it. Now it's disappeared and I'm holding nothingness out to my right, but yet my hand still shows me holding something. That's the illusion of our reality is we're seeing it right before us, but our filter says there's nothing there because I can't see anything. But if you look at my hand is in the position of holding something, but your eyes are telling your brain there's nothing there. And if I move the image, all of a sudden it's there, and it's like, oh, that's the magic that we have in our world. And when I say magic, I'm talking the MAGIC magic is the illusion of, they commonly call it the misdirection magic of, look at this hand while this hand is doing this, and you're, missing this because you're focused because I told you to focus here.
wow. Serious dreams. You think it's the hypnagogic state or bypassing it? Questions are starting to pile up in my mind. Yeah, me too. It's like one question after another. And I never heard of that word before, hypnagogic, until Saturday when Suze Gallagher brought it up, because there's so many different ways to describe different dreams and different ways of thinking that it gets overwhelming. And uh, what did I write here? I wrote a lot of things. Um,
Well, I can say I'm not familiar
I have
enough to
brain fart,
make
look it
a
out.
comment about it because I only heard about it too on Saturday. So I don't want to enter a theory or a comment about it because I want
Sounds
I
like you
want to
were
get some
inspired
more
by Suze
info.
Gallagher.
Yeah.
Suze Gallagher. And James Whittakis, I think it has to do with the Schumann frequency rising, or as I say, the background operating frequency. Schumann, that's the show where, was that Jim Carrey, where he thought
No, that's
everybody,
Truman.
oh, dude, see, that's how you know. And then
I can
Anchor Haven's
explain the
commenting,
Schumann real
she,
quick if you want.
what, what was that, sorry?
I said I can explain the Schumann resonance if you want real quick.
Sure, yes. I was gonna say, you should just clarify it because what am I thinking of? The Trump show? I don't even know.
Truman Show is what you're thinking.
Ah, Truman Show. That's what it is. Yes, yes.
So the Schumann resonance is the resonance of the energy that the earth is generating. And so when the sun is sending us flares, the Schumann resonance rises because it's sending up a shield and it's protecting us from the harmful wave that's coming. And so everybody's energy gets thrown out of whack because all of a suddenly it's like the energy of the world around us just went into crazy mode. And a way I could describe it in an easier, maybe to understand way is I watch the anime Dragon Ball Z sometimes, and there's a scene where they're trying to strengthen themselves and make themselves stronger. So they go into this place where they can crank the gravity to be like 100 times Earth's gravity. And you can see them straining to lift themselves up. Well, that would be the same as saying the Schumann has blacked out. It is so high that we cannot function and operate normally. And those that are sensitive are going to be knocked on their butt, where people who are less sensitive can maybe muddle their way through and be like, and emotions come up, and dark nights get triggered with the effect of the Schumann resonance because it brings stuff up. And if it's something that's been buried and the universe and you is like, hey, we can't bury this anymore, we're going to make you look at it. It's going to use the high Schumann resonance and say, look, no more are you going to say later. It's now. And so it's the energy of every living thing on the planet operating on a single, I guess, realm or imagined existence, as we put it, that's keeping us on this planet and allowing us to operate and move around. And so as it's low, we're okay. Some people get headaches when the Schumann goes up a little bit higher than normal, or groggy and are sleepy and are drawn in. And some people who never get sick can all of a sudden get a cold or the flu, and there's like no rhyme or reason. And well, it's because we're all affected by the environment around us, and the environment is controlled by solar factors, and not a lot of people think about that, how connected we are to the cosmos, because the cosmos has a huge impact on us. And I like to watch Stefan Burns and Sarah Starr Official on TikTok and YouTube, because they will sit there and they will say, hey, were you having a headache today? Did you know the Schumann went up? Well, did you know there was a solar wind that came through? So it's like you start to put all the pieces together and go, okay, note to self, I need to watch out for these days. I need to watch out for these events and start to plan around them. And so it's all about awareness and the environment around us is the Schumann.
I wasn't aware. I'm aware of the cyclical natures of time and energy, but I wasn't aware of the Schumann. So I'm gonna have fun googling that after, because I feel like a lot of what you just said resonated with me. Like, without going into stories, but like when I got spooked by Jaguar, like Alberto Villoldo told me that that's because the power animals were stalking me, and I was like, oh, that doesn't exactly make me feel any better. But like, it was because the time was up. Like, you can't, like the hero's journey, the time is now. You can't keep waiting anymore. The grace period is over. um
Yeah.
wow. And then at some points, James was clarifying that the what Suze Gallagher was talking about was just before you go to sleep and just when you wake up, that's when you're in that hypnotic state. And I forget now what it was called. The chat scrolled on me there. Hypnagogic state. And James wrote some interesting comments here. I think computer CPU over time, as they have increased the operating frequency of CPUs so they can access more things or higher levels of data as the rising Schumann frequency. And then Sirius Dreams is commenting implants, like some sort of trickery, like something put something in my field or screen, kind of astral fielding. I mean, like, this conversation goes on and on and on, right? But
Right.
Michael, just we wrap up, I wrote down the moon and I wrote down time travel, but you already talked about time travel a lot. But in one of your books, you talked about going to Egypt, and I forget now, was that a dream or did you time travel there? And do you time travel in this book? Um, I meant to ask that like 2 hours ago.
So I actually did go to Egypt physically, and so those experiences I physically had there. I do also go to astral traveling there at times if I feel drawn or feel like I need to learn something or remember something. But the thing about the moon that I bring up in the book, you mentioned the moon, is so we live in a world where I know from elementary school the moon only was up during the night time, not during the daytime, and broke off from the earth when something hit it and created the moon. Well, in my study of the moon and stuff about it is the Zulu tribe has pre-lunar knowledge where the moon was not there, or the pre-Columbians have tribal information that says the moon arrived and then we were in awe. The indigenous people have pre-moon or pre-lunar time knowledge, and the Greeks even had a name for tribes, and the Romans too. And so as I started looking at this and going, you know, the moon being a foreign object put into place sounds like this is conspiracy theory 101. But then I start to go, wait a minute. We have the Mediterranean, we have Africa, South America, Central America, North America, all talking about pre moon time. There is no way they got together and said, hey, let's pull the wool over everybody's eyes and, write this fiction and write this up. And so it made me go, we need to seriously look at the moon and go, how is this, what is this really? And they talk about the dark side of the moon all the time. But the thing is, people don't realize we're spinning in space. Mars is spinning. So therefore, the moon should be spinning as well. And if it was, we would see the dark side. So therefore, it is not a natural celestial object because it is fixed in space. And yes, it's orbiting us, but it never rotates. It rotates with us so that it is constant. And now we're seeing it during the daytime and at night, but not every day. And so it really starts to point out, is this holographic? Or is there really an object up there? And if it is, why is it there? And so that's what I propose in the book, is to show all this evidence of, here's this pre-lunar cultures that are far apart. So what do you think is, what is the moon really? And why is it such a threat that it's not a natural object that's been here from the beginning? That it may be 10,000 years old or 20,000 years old. And so that's, kind of one of those elements that you'll find it under the truths that we just blindly accept category. And it's a really long section, too. And I apologize for the length, but I wanted to make it really clear that this is, not just one culture here, one culture there, that this is like spread across the globe, and so really need to take a look at this, in my opinion, and really go and say there's something here. May not be, a moon base, or space station, but it's not a piece of the earth either. So what is it really doing up there?
Wow, 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 wow. I know Michael needs to get going. When it comes to the moon, I'm fascinated by it because, like you, that's what I thought, because that's what was told to me, that planet Earth, something broke off and created the moon. But then you listen to folks like David Adair speak, and if you were to knock on the moon, it rings. Well, things ring if they're hollow inside. Why is the moon hollow inside? Is there some kind of city in there, some kind of base? You hear stories about people bringing moon dust back to planet Earth, sprinkling it on some crops. The crops grow big time, right? The moon is tidal locked with us. If it wanted to leave, it can't leave. It's literally stuck with us. And I didn't know about the time before the moon until I went on my own personal journey, learning about David Adair and stuff like that. Because in my dream life, the goldfish dancing on land, there is no moon. It's just the sun. And that's what I do. I track the sun, and I don't mean to, but I end up creating a clock. Um, so this has been very fascinating with me. I feel like, Michael, you could probably just go live on your channel and not have a guest and just be your own guest, taking Q's and A's from the audience, because today people were really enjoying it. So thank you so much. I know there's more questions in the chat, but that's all the time we have for today. Michael sent me a message about half an hour ago telling me he only had 15 minutes left. Thank
Yeah,
you so much, Michael, for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll remove you here from the stage. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your time. I feel like I got to rush now. He's got to go. He told me a good half hour ago that he had to go. But let me show you his book again, Deeper Insights into the Mind of Michael. This book might just be, I don't know, like, it might upstage the other ones, because the other ones are kind of like Michael going on his journey and figuring things out. But now, like, book 5 is like really analyzing all of the information. And so thank you to everybody who's participated in the chat today. And I really appreciate everybody's time. Story Species, Story Medicine. Anybody out there has any medicine that they've been targeting, whoops, there we go. I'm targeting published authors, but if you're not published yet, who cares, And I also want to remind people, I put it out there on my Buy Me a Coffee this morning, nonverbal communication. There's a lot of authors that do interpretive dancing, or they play music, or they paint or draw pictures. And so if that's your form of communication, absolutely, I lovingly invite you to be a guest on Story Species, Story Medicine, Extra Strength. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got your medicine. It's the best prescription out there, and it's absolutely free. Gina Virginia Casella here, wishing everybody a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Take care and bye for now.